you. Hi, I'm Sylvia Liu. I'm a third-year intern with the Fairfax County Master Gardeners Association. Thank you so much for joining us. So I'm going to talk to you briefly today about peas and trellis. Next slide, please, Susan. So peas is actually one of the easiest and earliest vegetable that you can grow in your home garden. And I'm not kidding when I say it's really easy, because I think, is there?
Yeah, sorry, I don't know what happened there. Sorry.
So it's one of the easiest vegetable to grow. The picture you see on the presentation was taken by me last summer, and it was a pea plant that my daughter, who's 7 years old, grew. So I mean, it was a fun little project for her, and I'm telling you, she, as a little child, can grow some peas. I think we can all grow some peas. So peas is a cold season vegetable. That means it's grown best in cold weather. It's frost hardy, which means that you can plant it before our last frost, which is around the middle to the end of April for us. So there's an old saying that says, planting peas on St. Patty's Day will bring you good luck at harvest time. So that is a good way for people to remember when to plant their peas. It's usually around St. Patty's Day. The most common kind of peas you see in people's gardens are English peas, which is the same as garden peas. Next slide, please.
Yeah.
So peas is it's cold season vegetable, and the best way to plant it is to put the seeds directly into the soil. So transplanting does not work very well with the peas. However, there is an option that you can do, which is germinating the seeds indoors by placing the seeds between 2 sheets of wet paper and letting it sprout, and then you plant the sprouted seeds. The best soil to use for the peas are well drained with organic matter, and the best way to plant the peas in terms of spacing is making sure that each seeds are 2 to 3 inches apart, and if you plant them in rows, they are 1 to 2 feet per row. Peas, usually you don't need to water them very much, because usually you're planting them pretty early in the spring, and it's usually pretty wet. Like, as you see, you know, we had a ton of rains recently, so you don't usually have to water peas very often. Usually just once a week, just to make sure that you don't let the soil dry completely. Peas mature in about 2 months, so you plant them in March or April, and you can usually harvest them in May and June. Next, please. So next, I'm going to talk to you about trellis, and it's actually related to peas, because a lot of the garden variety as well as the English variety peas are plants that require trellis. So what exactly is trellis? Trellis is used for vertical gardening, which means that if you use trellis, the plant is growing upwards rather than around, spreading around. Some of the benefits of using a trellis is to maximize the use of available space, to facilitate better air movement through the plants. It also allows you to have higher quality fruit, and also it's easier to harvest your fruit if it's grown on a trellis. So the picture you see on the presentation is the trellis I made, and what I had planted underneath it is pole beans, because there are a couple of different vegetables that do very well with trellis, and they are pole beans, peas, cucumbers, melons, and tomatoes. Next slide, please. So this picture is taken a month later, and you can see that the bean plant has really grown pretty vigorously and has really taken over the trellis. And imagine if there wasn't a trellis, this entire plant would just sort of be spreading around on the ground. And as I'm looking at this picture, I'm just remembering how much space that Toshiko has in her garden, and I just feel so garden envy because I have, it's like 8 feet by 4 feet. So And so next slide, please. So trellis is also related to other structures that people use in their garden, such as stakes or cages, and they have the same benefits as trellis. They essentially allow the plant to go up rather than go out. So here's one example of a trellis. It's called a tripod trellis, and essentially you get some wood, and I think bamboos works really well, bamboo sticks. You put them on the ground and then you tie them on top, and then you plant beans or peas around the poles and allowing the plant to go up. Next, please. This is another type of structure that people use for vertical gardening. It's called stake and weave. So what you do is you put stakes on the ground, and then you put gardening wires around the stakes, so it will provide structure for the plants to grow either on it. Next, please. And the next one is one I think a lot of people are familiar with, is the tomato cage. It allows the tomato plant to be planted inside the cage, and as it grows bigger, it uses the cage for support. Next. So here are some of the resources that you can look into to learn more about planting peas and using trellis. And my presentation is based on information I've gotten from these publications, and they've been very useful.